It's time for Reason.
If you're going to run as a Republican, then you need to uphold Republican values. Less government, limited taxes, less regulation, understanding the duties of the government. These are things that are the platform of the Republican Party. They've been the platform of the Republican Party for a really long time, and now Republican legislators need to uphold that, respect it, and fight for it, rather than saying they will when they run for office and then turning around and doing something different.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I'll get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
Oh, that's what I'm talking about. Welcome into the Voice of Reason. I have to say, this is probably going to be one of the most patriotic, happy-go-lucky, get-her-done types of shows. I mean, every show is like that, but what the heck, what's making it extra special one today on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. Welcome into the Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM, simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV. We love being on TV as well. Welcome aboard Channel 2610. Great to have you along today on a Patriotic Tuesday. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, we have the Facebook Live feed up and rolling. We have the Twitter account at Hoosier Reason. You can also, well, you can't actually email me, Andy at KQAMradio.com right now because our email is having a little funky time, but we'll be able to get that up and rolling here relatively soon. If you do want to send me a message, you also can on Facebook and on Twitter. Big show today. We got a lot of fun. We have a lot of big news. We have a lot of discussions to be had. We have some information on an event coming up this weekend that yours truly has began to put together. We're partnering up with some individuals. We're partnering up with some great events and some individuals around here to be able to make this happen. So more information coming very soon on the show today. Plus, I don't know if you saw or not last night or if you paid attention. Of course, this is what everybody's going to be talking about today. So we might as well scoop every other one of them and talk about it. But Brett Kavanaugh, Judge Brett Kavanaugh is the pick for the U.S. Supreme Court from President Donald J. Trump. And first off, let me just tell you, this should be a very exciting time for us. This should be a very exciting time. Why? Because, well, first off, we need to recognize the fact that this is the second pick for the U.S. Supreme Court that President Donald J. Trump has been able to do. And we have to remember the fact that it could have been Hillary Clinton. Right there, end of story. Should be already a success. It could have been Hillary Clinton, but it's not. And as we had Neil Gorsuch, that has been approved, obviously, and has been on the U.S. Supreme Court for a little bit now. Now we have another individual, Brett Kavanaugh, would be, if he ends up getting on there, the second most conservative Supreme Court justice that would be on the panel. Now, what does that say? That means that we're actually originalists. That means that we actually believe in the fact that, you know, what the Constitution actually represents and what we interpret it as originally, as opposed to rewriting it into today's times. It is not, I don't care what any progressive tells you, it is not a living document. It is an amendable document. It is a original document, and that's the way that it's going to stay. And if we can continue to shift the gear just a little bit farther to the right when it comes to the Supreme Court, unfortunately, look, Supreme Courts are not supposed to be activists. They're not supposed to have any type of political mindset. They're supposed to interpret the law and give their opinion on there. And unfortunately now they've even politicized that to where if you interpret it the way it's supposed to be interpreted, then apparently you're an activist and you have your own mindset, because now even lack of opinion is now opinion in today's society. Thank you very much for progressives for lumping us into that nice little category and classifying us for that. Quote from Brett Kavanaugh: read the words of the statute as written. Read the text of the Constitution as written. Don't make up new constitutional rights that are not in the text of the U.S. Constitution. Ladies and gentlemen, do you realize the impact this is going to have on the Supreme Court if this ends up going through? Do you realize the positive impact that this could have? Now, as you know, that we're shifting gears a little bit from a relatively moderate conservative traditionalist individual on the Supreme Court like Anthony Kennedy to someone like Brett Kavanaugh, to where now we're going to have a solid 5-4 majority on the Supreme Court if this ends up going through, which I believe it will. And I really hope it does. Republicans have come out in mass support of this individual. Democrats, of course, have come out in mass opposition of this individual. And we're going to ram through the votes and ram through the numbers. Hopefully we can do what we had to do last time with Neil Gorsuch by getting a 50-50 vote, having Vice President Mike Pence come in and make that tie-breaking vote happen. Because what we're going to have left from a traditionalist, originalist stance on the Supreme Court would be John Roberts, would be Samuel Alito, would be Neil Gorsuch, would be Brett Kavanaugh, and would be Clarence Thomas. And with those individuals, I mean, come on. Wouldn't that feel really, really good? And then on the other side of the aisle, we're going to have the Sonia Sotomayor. We're going to have Ruth Bader Ginsburg. We're going to have Stephen Breyer. We're going to have Ilana Keegan. And I think that at least one of them, hopefully like Ruth Bader Ginsburg pretty soon, is going to be saying, yeah, you know what? I'm almost 90. Time to retire. I keep sleeping during hearings. Time to retire. And guess what? Then we're going to have a 6-3. And imagine what that's going to be like for the next, 20, 30, 40 years. Just imagine. This is why the progressives are all panicky. This is why they've tried to obstruct just for the sake of obstructing. Could you imagine having a Supreme Court like that and finally beginning to overturn some of these issues, whether it is Roe v. Wade, whether it is some of the gun issues? I mean, the NRA came out in mass support of it as of last night, right after the announcement. Mike Lee, Ted Cruz, all the conservatives came out in mass support of this individual last night. Now, according to Fox News, here's what we need to know. The 5 things to know about Brett Kavanaugh when it comes to the Supreme Court pick. Number 1, he worked on the investigation that led to President Clinton's impeachment. To now, take that as you will. It is unclear how Kavanaugh would rule on abortion. Of course, the biggest issue they were concerned about was the fact that he may help overturn Roe v. Wade, but Kavanaugh has never directly ruled on abortion as a judge, so it's unclear how he would decide on the subject, according to Fox News. He did, however, descend recently on an appeals court decision that allowed a pregnant teenage illegal immigrant who was in federal custody to have an abortion. Additionally, the nominee has not publicly said whether he's in favor of overturning Roe v. Wade. That would be somewhat of an interesting conversation. Maybe that was the one point to where they're not quite prepared yet to overturn it. Now, you got to remember the political landscape that we're in today, and we can't get everything sort of thing, and we have to work towards, little by little by little, we have to work towards our goal. Maybe now's not the right time. We get a solid conservative onto the Supreme Court. We try and get one more to get a 6-3 margin, and then we ram it through because he may be in opposition on that vote, and we got to make sure we seal the deal on there. Maybe we wait out one more. If you hear that we talked to Gerard Lamiro, Great News for America, and More Great News for America, the 2 books that he wrote, with his predictions on the presidential election and the midterm elections coming up, he mentioned that President Trump's going to get 4 Supreme Court nominees. This would be number 2. We get 1 or 2 more on there, and then we're going to be in decent shape. Progress, baby. Progress. Now, again, I'm not an expert on this individual. I've never heard of this individual beforehand, but from what it sounds like that he's going to have a very nice, a very solid conservative approach when it comes to many issues, backed and endorsed by the NRA, backed and endorsed by many conservative outlets, backed and endorsed by the majority of Republicans already in Congress. That's kind of a nice, lighthearted sign. Now, he does have close ties to the Bush family, which I find very interesting, according to Fox News. I find that interesting for the fact that the Bushes despise President Donald Trump, and Donald Trump had considered not picking this individual because of the ties with the Bushes. However, if he's a good individual and a good candidate for the Supreme Court, then should that really be a deterrent from him? According to Fox News, number 4, Kavanaugh credits his mother for his career path, and he ran in the Boston Marathon. Not quite sure what that has to do with policy, but all the power to him. And, it's one of those celebrity things where you get the microphone and the 5 minutes of fame, and you go, I love you, Mom! And that's really how far that one went. So congrats there, and congrats to Brett Kavanaugh for becoming the nominee. Hopefully we can get him onto the Supreme Court and make some really good things happen. Your thoughts on this? 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. We are moving in the right direction, slowly but surely, my friends. And by the way, another campaign promise from President Donald Trump that is sealed in by choosing someone who's going to be a huge benefit to the Supreme Court. We cannot be more happy and more content with that. I was concerned and was hoping that we would be able to go into the midterm election maybe rallying people to try and get a little bit more of a majority onto the Senate before we actually vote on Supreme Court nominee. This might be able to put us over the top. By instead of saying try and ride through and make it a political issue, Donald Trump doesn't do that. And we should have thought about that. He doesn't do that type of thing and say, yeah, you know what, we're going to hold off, make it into a campaign issue, stretch this out, drag it out, make it into a bigger deal. Instead, he's saying, you know what, I'm going to prove what I'm going to do is what I promised I was going to do on the campaign trail. I'm going to choose these individuals. We're going to make them get through. And then when we go to the voting booth in November, we're going to recognize the fact that Republicans and Donald Trump did something. They didn't turn it into a political issue. They didn't try and stretch it out. They actually did what they said they were going to do. And that's got to go a long way. It's got to go a long way. I mean, imagine going into this election as a Democrat hoping for the blue wave to happen, and you hear the fact that, oh, Donald Trump did a tax cut and everybody's got more money in their pockets. Oh, we got a crazy low unemployment rate in the country at 4%. Oh, we got more jobs than we've had in a really long time right now. Oh, the GDP is actually growing at 3.5%, 4% when Barack Obama never saw it above 3%. Oh, we actually did move the embassy to Jerusalem the way that we promised that we do, when, by the way, the last 3 presidents at least had promised to do the same thing, and we actually did it. Oh. We had a meeting with North Korea saying that we were actually going to try and denuclearize that peninsula and that we're going to start bringing peace, and it's been a little rocky, but for the first time, a U.S. president met with the leader of Kim Jong-un. Mike Pompeo, Secretary of State, is still in talks with him, and we're having communication in that area. We said we would do it. Barack Obama said he would do it, and it didn't happen. And look at where we're at now. Oh. One after another, after another, after another. The tariff wars. Are people really upset about the tariffs? Yeah, a little bit. And we'll talk about that in just a second, because actually the Democrats in the state of Kansas are going after Republicans. They see a little weak point. They see an attempted Achilles heel here, and they're going after it with a vengeance, like the rabid dog trying to find the weak spot. And we'll talk about tariffs in a minute, but some people are upset about that. But guess what? You know what? You have to respect President Donald Trump. Why? Because he said he's putting America first. He's going to start negotiating trade deals that are beneficial to the U.S. as opposed to a trade deal that's only giving benefit to the other country that we're actually making negotiations with. We're doing something positive. Action for the first time in politics in a really long time. We're seeing action instead of just talk and promises and then turning everything into a campaign rhetoric talk. We can go and say we did it as opposed to we want to do this. We did it. And that's something that we have to be very proud of. And I think this is a way to do that if we're able to get this individual, this Brett Kavanaugh, onto the U.S. Supreme Court. And then we have another notch into the belt of President Donald Trump that said, I told you I would do it, and I did it. And imagine what that's going to do for the red wave that's going to sweep over the nation, being able to take over a few more seats with the Democrats that are going to be so angry at the fact that they're not going to have a majority in order to start the impeachment process. They're going to be so angry after a year and a half of Russian investigations to where they have to shut down the investigations because nothing's there. When they're so angry that they're not going to be able to repeal the tax cuts that President Donald Trump did because of the success that we're having and the mentality that people have across the nation. This is going to help, by the way, the local elections as well. Do you really think? I know that there's a trend in the state of Kansas that every 8 years we start going Republican, Democrat, and we switch parties every 8 years for the governorship. Do you really think that we're going to completely change tides and we're going to go blue in a governorship here in the state of Kansas when the Republicans have all the momentum at the federal level? That helps the state parties. That helps the state elections. They ride the wave, baby. They're riding the momentum. When the federal level's being a little more content for the party, then the state parties are doing the same thing. This is going to help us not only maintain Republicans in many elected seats in the state of Kansas, but it's also going to be able to help us elect and nominate a few more conservative individuals potentially in our state legislature and when it comes to our governorship on what we're actually going to represent. 21 minutes past the hour. We got a heck of a show for you today. We got a lot of things coming up, some great guests today as well. Plus, the rally we've all been waiting for. It's officially announced, and we'll have some more information on that in just a little bit. This is The Voice of Reason on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. Stay right here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
27 minutes past the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason right here on the Big Talker KQAM, kicking off your Tuesday morning the right way. You can interpret that however you'd like to do so. Welcome aboard, 316-721-8255. Your thoughts on the new Supreme Court nominee. Now the Senate begins their hearing process, their interview process. Listener on Facebook, a lot of people having a problem with him because he clerked for a moderate. What's your thoughts on that? Well, honestly, I don't have a problem with it. I really don't. You got to start somewhere. You got to work your way up. And when you have an opportunity to work for somebody, then that's what you do. If you remember, Ted Cruz started off his political career from the legal side under the George H.W. Bush administration in Texas. And if you remember, the Ted Cruz even accepted donations for a Senate race from George H.W. Bush, and Mr. Karl Rove and George W. did not like that very much and made him reimburse it because they thought that, well, Dad, you're just senile. Why would you support someone like Ted Cruz? You're nuts. And went after Ted Cruz to make him reimburse that. That doesn't say anything about his views as an individual like Ted Cruz himself. So you have your own opinions, you have your own views. Sometimes does that get skewed? Yeah, a little bit. Obviously, if let's say that you got nominated and you worked under the Barack Obama administration, and you sang praises of that administration while you tried to play off as a conservative, that might be a little bit different. But you stayed predominantly on the right side of the aisle. You worked your way up the ladder in order to become a more efficient individual. You worked yourself up to be able to have success. I mean, that's kind of unfortunately, that's the way of politics. If you want to make it high up into the ranks, you got to work your way up, regardless of what type of working your way up that may consist of and who you work for. That's why many individuals who are especially involved in campaigns and individuals who are quote unquote consultants, in that sense, they really don't care who they work for, Republican or Democrat, moderate or conservative. As long as they have a job, they continue to do so, and they do so based on their own opinion. I'm not saying that's right, but especially in politics, I mean, if he clerked for a moderate, yeah, you know what? He learned from the moderate. He learned how to work his way up, and look at where he's at now. And according to all the polls that I've seen, or at least from the spectrums that we've been able to follow here, that he would be the second most conservative, just behind Clarence Thomas when it comes to conservatism and originalism of interpreting the Constitution from that side. So I chalk that up as a good sense. If he clerked for a moderate, then, not everybody can be perfect, I guess. But hey, it depends on what he has to say and his opinions on the issues, or interpretations of the issues, not even his opinion, but his interpretations of the issues, and whether they're right or wrong. And if he's going to be that conservative and that traditionalist and originalist, then I'm open to being able to support this guy. And remember, again, it's not a Hillary Clinton pick. I mean, come on, right there. Hello. We got to be excited about that. Where is it? There it is. Bottom of the hour news coming up. This is The Voice of Reason. Now, if a Republican all of a sudden worried about an election comes around and starts wavering on his principles and says, okay, I'm going to give that amnesty, would that soften your heart to the Republican? Or would you say, yeah, that's nice, great, thanks. That's one less thing that we actually have to address when we're in power, and I'm still going to vote for the Democrat.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, making it happen today on a Tuesday morning, trying to start you off the best way we know how to do so, which is getting you really upset about politics. Come on, 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. If you want to join in, we'd love to hear from you. Your thoughts on the Supreme Court Justice pick. We will touch on that again later on in the show. I do want to shift gears, though, a little bit back to the home front here in Kansas. We have some major elections happening in the state of Kansas. This midterm election between the governor's race, between many state legislative races, along with the 2nd congressional district and some others around here, county commission, that sort of thing. So we have a lot to talk about when it comes to election-wise. We will start getting some more candidates back on the program here as we get closer to the primary. If you notice, we've held off on that for a while just because we're ready to gear up right leading up to the primary. So that'll start happening here very soon. 316-721-8255. The Republicans continue to spar, especially when it comes to tariffs in the state of Kansas. And after the tariffs that President Trump imposed onto the country and kind of the bickering and the haggling between many nations and trade negotiations, and farmers hurting, suffering from that. The Republicans talk about what they would do in contrast of that. Democrats seeing the Achilles heel of the Republicans trying to go after that. I don't think it's going to last very long. I don't think it's going to go very far, but at least they're going to try. You know what I have to laugh at for a second, though? Is that the Democrats are still having Jack Bergeson, the high school student, at all of the debates and panel discussions for the Democrats in the gubernatorial race. You have to chuckle at that just a little bit, don't you? I mean, the Republicans, if you've noticed, we had more high school students, which shows that, by the way, I like that fact because it showed that the young generation predominantly is more onto the Republican side of the aisle than it is on the Democrat side of the aisle. Even with the whole Bernie Sanders movement, we had, 3 Republican high school students. One of them ended up going over to the Libertarian Party, but 3 overall Republican high school students, 1 Democrat, and all of them kind of gone to the wayside. They didn't have the money to stay in the race. They didn't have a whole lot of campaign funds. They didn't get out a whole lot sort of thing. But the Democrat high school student is still in it, which means either they're desperate for a candidate or he just has a lot of money, is able to stay in, and he got some support somehow. I don't know what the deal is, or maybe they're still dividing on the whole what the platform is going to look like, and maybe they're looking for the younger representation. I don't know what their deal is. I do find it ironic, though. He has been still in many of the panel discussions and debates that have been going on across the state. We'll talk about that in just a minute. 316-721-8255. I do want to touch on the election going up in the 2nd Congressional District. It's going to be a big election as that seat is open. Lynn Jenkins stepping down. We have, 7 Republicans, 4 or 5 Democrats that are running for that seat. One of them yesterday making an interesting comment. We'll touch on that in just a second. Let's go to the phones, though, and get your thoughts. 316-721-8255. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, it's Happy Tuesday.
Good morning, Myron. How are you, sir?
Oh, I'm so pretty, I have to be good.
There you go. That's a good day there.
No, just wanted to hand out to your listeners, there's a chance on Facebook, Wink Hartman and Chris Kowak are going to be at the Andover Pizza Hut today from noon to 1. And then for your Western Kansas listeners, they're going to be in Pratt and Todd City and Garden City. So I encourage people to go to Facebook and see when the crew comes near you, and here's a chance to meet them up front and personal, tell them what you think, and generally just get acquainted.
Well, you know what?
I think it's...
Well, here's the thing, and I love the fact that this is why I love political season and election season, because now's the time to where so many people are engaged and active. They want to go to different events. They want to hear about the candidates. They want to go to these public forums. They want to go to the meet and greets. And as you mentioned, Chris Kowak, Wink Hartman, they're going to be in town or close to town, at least here in Andover today. Jim Barnett's been all around. Ken Seltzer's been all around. Governor Collier has been around. And it's really starting to heat up. I think there's at least, one or two more Republican debates before the primary, which is going to be a lot of fun to witness, because it has kind of heated up. The tension has. And I don't know if you've noticed or not, but drive down any street and see how many political signs and yard signs that you see out and about across the state and across the highways as you drive by. It's that type of season. There's just, a feeling to it, isn't there, of just the excitement of just everybody getting engaged and getting active and showing their support for one candidate or another.
Yeah, I just think it's great. I'd recommend anybody that they keep checking the Facebook pages of all of the candidates for a time to meet and greet and share with them, because everybody's got an opinion about what needs to be done for Kansas, and nothing like telling the candidates themselves what you think.
Well, that's very true. Myron, I appreciate it very much. Great insight and great information there if you want to go and attend those events. Here's what you do, and I highly encourage, by the way, anybody to go out and meet the candidates, obviously. I'm sure you already know that, but here's the reason why. You hear the campaign talking points from the candidate. You hear the attack ads from the opponent. You hear the TV ads, the radio ads, or you see the yard signs. But does that really give you the insight of the individual? Does that really give you the insight on their character, on their voting record, on who they are, on what type of person they are? It really does matter. You remember the Mitt Romney election in 2012? And we were running him, and we realized that he wasn't the most conservative individual, and he had a lot of progressive ideals, and he was very happy about his socialized Medicaid system or socialized healthcare system in his state when he was governor, and that's what he paraded on, and then was trying to oppose the Obamacare issue and the Obamacare mandates that were happening, and he was trying to separate himself, but he really wasn't, and he was having a hard time. But you remember what the argument was for a lot of individuals, or what they said about Mitt Romney? He's a really nice guy. He's a really nice guy. And obviously in the general election, we had to accept that as that he was a really nice guy and support him and try to oppose the Democrat. And that's kind of what we had to do. That's just what you do in the general election. But even the primary, let's go back a little bit further to the primary, he's just a really nice guy. And it goes a long way. How many people do you remember saying that? Even in state races, maybe they're not the most conservative individuals, but how many of them do you remember hearing say, he or she is just a really nice person? Or, other, if they try to identify that way. I don't know if we have any state legislators that try to identify as other, but they're just a really nice person. And that goes a long way once you meet them and you shake their hand. And, you can always tell, remember, based on the handshake of somebody, a nice firm handshake means that they mean business. They look you straight in the eye. They talk to you with sincerity. They talk to you with passion. They talk to you with emotion. They talk to you from the heart and not just from a script or a talking. And you can tell these things when you meet them in person, whether they're just reading from a script and they're just like glazed over and not like really there, and they're just reading from the regurgitated talking points, or whether they're talking with sincerity and saying, this is what I truly believe. This is what I honestly feel. This is what I truly believe in and what I want to fight for. You can tell that. You can't tell that from a campaign ad. You can't tell that from an attack ad. You can't tell that even sometimes. Luckily, we have a platform here on the radio to where we can get a little bit of that. Because I can tell just by sitting here and doing an interview with somebody, whether they are just doing a regurgitated talking point and reading from a script, or whether it's off the cuff and they're truly flexible. Because I don't know, different interviewers and different journalists, and I'm not a journalist by any way, shape, or form, but different individuals do interviews in different ways. Some provide questions beforehand and say, this is exactly what I'm going to ask you, and be prepared with prepared statements. I don't do that. I'm kind of an off-the-cuff kind of guy. I have my show prep. I know what I'm going to talk about. I know what I want to bring up, and I know what I want to do. But then as we go along, we just kind of free flow. And we just kind of do it as, if we need to focus on something a little bit more or less or whatever. And I give them a general idea. Hey, I want to talk to you about your campaign. I want to talk to you about your talking points. I want to talk to you about your platform. I want to talk to you about an issue that was in the news recently or whatever. But I free flow my questions. I do not script them. I do not give any of my guests, anybody, whether it's political or non-political, I do not give them a scripted list of questions to interview them, because I want to find out, are they personable? And with an elongated interview segment, as opposed to a little 4 or 5 minute blurb, we can get to the nitty gritty. We can actually understand these people, and we can actually get down to what they actually feel, what they're saying, and whether they actually mean it or not. And that's why I love this kind of platform. But you're not going to get that anywhere else unless you're physically there, shaking their hand, meeting them, and asking them questions and listening to them talk. And you can tell that sincerity. You can just judge that, or at least I can. Most people can judge that, can tell. And that right there is one of the most important things you can do. I understand that most people are like, well, yeah, just can't make it. Try to make it, at least to one, for each of the candidates. Listen to them, understand them, and be able to move forward. Let's take a break, 45 minutes past the hour. When we come back, I want to talk about the 2nd Congressional District, plus the rally has been set. We're going to move forward, talk about a true, genuine grassroots campaign in order to make this rally be pulled off for this weekend. I'm really excited about it. Yours truly came up with this, started getting the locked-in guests and speakers for this, and is going to make this happen. Let's show up in mass. We know the opposition's probably going to show up and try and protest this. Let's show up in mass as a community and show our silent majority voice that's not going to be silent any longer. We'll have some more information on that in just a little bit. 46 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
minutes to the top of the hour. Welcome back into the Voice of Reason. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. We're seeing some of the progressives not liking the whole Brett Kavanaugh Supreme Court nomination. All worked up. I don't know if you saw or not, Nancy Pelosi, even though that the House really has nothing to do with the Supreme Court pick because it's all about the Senate approving. Nancy Pelosi did a fundraiser trying to obstruct and trying to block before they even made the pick. You know, progressives just being upset about things that don't even happen before they happen. And then, but they understand that there is going to be some kind of conservative movement, and they are desperate to try and block it because they don't know what's going to happen in the long term. So I find that quite ironic and quite entertaining. Let them try. What's really funny, though, I've been seeing some social media posts of individuals on the lefter side of the aisle, and they've been sharing these different stories and blogs or whatever about how this is going to be the beginning of the end of our constitutional republic, which I find hilarious. Number one, first off, I've never heard them say constitutional republic. They've always said democracy because they want democracy as opposed to a republic. Number two, I don't know how being a traditionalist and the original intent of what the Constitution was set up for as a constitutional republic means that we're going to destroy our constitutional republic. I don't know if we're just that naive and ignorant. I don't know if we just don't care, or, of course, it's probably just the talking point to get people to be really, really scared. But they're sharing stories all over the place about how this is going to be the end of our constitutional republic. It's funny how we get under their skin that much. I enjoy it. I enjoy just, rattling the cage and watching the squirm happen. Some people don't necessarily like to do that, but I enjoy that. And watching the progressives squirm in their seats just because of another Supreme Court nominee, I find quite entertaining. 316-721-8255. Up in the 2nd Congressional District, according to the Topeka Capital Journal, we've had him on the show, but there is, I got to find my story here again. There is one of the candidates, Steve Fitzgerald, as he's made a comment that is going viral, made national news. All the Democrats all up in arms about it, saying that anything outside of Western civilization is barbarism. Barbaric tribalism, barbaric mentalities everywhere outside of Western civilization. Now, whether you agree with that or not, I find that kind of hilarious. And I almost have to agree to some degree. Republican congressional candidate in the Kansas race Democrats are targeting in November told an audience at a party meeting this month that, quote, outside of Western civilization, there is only barbarism. The comments come from State Senator Steve Fitzgerald, a candidate seeking the Republican nomination in the race to replace retiring Representative Lynn Jenkins. It came as a July 2nd meeting of the Leavenworth County Republican Party. During his more than 30-minute speech, Fitzgerald lamented the fact that people believe Western civilization is the problem, argued that Christendom is under attack, and doubled down for his previous statement from Planned Parenthood is worse than a Nazi concentration camp. Quote, we're being told that Western civilization is the problem in the world. Outside of Western civilization, there is only barbarism. It kind of makes sense. Now, this takes the whole patriotic nationalism to a whole nother level, and some may not go that far. Yeah, that's, the hyperbole. Maybe a little bit of hyperbole, but come on. Democrats out of anybody would be able to understand what hyperbole is. The fact that they're trying to say that the separating of children is like a Nazi concentration camp, that's ironic in itself. But I almost see what he's saying. Because if you don't live in a constitutional republic and you don't live in a nation where things are free with the liberties that you have actually here in the United States, then what really do you have? What type of government do you have, and are you necessarily as free? And if you're not as free, then who's controlling you? The government, the tyrant, the mob, the militant, the despot, the whoever, the genocidal maniac. And there really is barbarism. When you look at the Middle East and you see an individual that's a member of the LGBTQ community and that may be gay, that gets beat up, tied to a chair, and thrown off a 5-story building, then I would consider that barbarism. When you bury a woman into the sand and stone her to death because that's tradition, then that to me is barbarism. When you torture somebody just for the sake of, not even trying to get intel out of them, not even trying to keep the country safe, but you're just doing it just because you don't like them, that is barbarism. when you make people suffer through the government control that they have, a socialist nation. Listen up to all the socialists out there. When you believe in socialism and you believe the government should redistribute wealth and everybody is poor and you can't go to the grocery store and see the option of foods and resources that you need to survive, that is barbarism. Now, I'm not saying every nation out there is like that, obviously. But under Western culture, Western civilization, Western culture, I mean the American culture, the melting pot to where we accept everybody. We may not have to agree with everybody, but we accept it and we tolerate it because that's the way our society actually works. In other nations where they don't do that, or one sect tries to overpower the other sect, which is the struggle that we're having, the tug of war that we're having in the United States right now, but where it's actually taken hold in other parts of the world, that is barbarism. So it makes sense. Is it hyperbole? Sure. Does it go over the top? Well, possibly. Maybe a little bit. But I actually kind of agree with it to some degree. And I know that's a crazy, wild concept. This is coming from CNN, where, of course, they're trying to demonize it the most they possibly can, but making national news because of the fact that he said that outside of Western civilization, there is only barbarism. And, of course, the progressives who are being taught, by the way, in college that Western civilization is a terrible thing, that capitalism and the capitalist mentality from the white theorists, philosophers from the ancient European cultures, that itself is barbarism, and that they can't stand living in a culture that actually appreciates that or accepts that or lives by that type of rule of law, because they want anarchy, they want utopianism, they want despotism, they want tyranny, they want complete control, and the fact that we actually have restricted our government so they can't do that makes them very, very angry and frustrated, to where sometimes they have to go back down into the basement of their parents' house and cry with a Tide Pod. Just saying! Hour number 2, The Voice Reason, coming up. Lots more to get to. Got some calls on the line. We'll start off with you when we come back. This is The Voice Reason. Stay here.
Speak. It's time for Reason.
If you're going to run as a Republican, then you need to uphold Republican values. Less government, limited taxes, less regulation, understanding the duties of the government. These are things that are the platform of the Republican Party. They've been the platform of the Republican Party for a really long time, and now Republican legislators need to uphold that, respect it, and fight for it, rather than saying they will when they run for office and then turning around and doing something different.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray. We don't get fooled again. Don't get fooled again.
That's what I'm talking about. Welcome into The Voice of Reason, hour number 2 of The Voice of Reason, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas, on the Big Talker. 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on TV, KGP TV, channel 2610. Great to have you along today. 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. I think this is going to be a great day today. I think it's going to be a great what did Craig Ferguson always used to say? It's a great day for America, everybody. And I think that's what we need to celebrate every single day. 316-721-8255. The Facebook Live feed is up and rolling. Facebook.com/1480KQAM. You can also send me a Twitter tweet, whatever, at Hoosier Reason. I don't get on there much, but you can. I actually was on there yesterday and had a little fun, and then throwing the wrench in the system, rocking the boat, because that's just what I like to do. Coming up on the show today, really excited. We got a lot of great guests. We have a lot of great conversations to be had. Already had some in hour number 1. Bryan Frye, Wichita City Council member. He'll be joining us in about 20 minutes. As we do every single Tuesday. In the 8 o'clock hour, we'll be talking with David Hill with One Spark, as they were great contributors to the tornado relief that happened just a few weeks ago after the tornado that hit, and looking forward to chatting with them on their organization and what they've done for the tornado relief in the area. Can you imagine one small town that still continuously gets hit with tornadoes, what was it, like 3 times in the last decade? Kind of insane. The rebuilding process has begun and will continue for a while, so we'll talk with them coming up in hour number 3. Until then, though, it's open lines to you, 316-721-8255. And let's go ahead and kick off this hour with a phone call. Line number 2. Good morning. What's your name?
Scott.
What's going on, Scott?
Well, as far as the guy talking about Western civilization, I mean, sometimes you can give something a lot of accolades and at the same time not tell the whole truth. I mean, there are some things that went wrong. That's why they had World War I and II, and potentially we're trying to go to World War III and IV. But anyway, what I wanted to speak on was the fact that you had Kansas legislators trying to demand to see federal facilities concerning themselves about illegal aliens when they're not even going down to the Sedgwick County jail and inspecting that and seeing what's going on with Kansas people.
Well, and
I think it's important for them to see what's going on with people here in Kansas.
Well, sure. I'm glad you brought that up. I'm glad you brought up that issue. Here's again what they said on Friday at the rally. There were 2 legislators that showed up to the progressive protest wanting to inspect the ICE location here in town to see if it was a detention center and what the quality of livelihood was there at the detention center. Gail Finney, state representative, had this to say on Friday at the rally.
I'm so glad to be out here with you all today because I definitely support this movement. Because what is happening there is wrong. It's just absolutely wrong. I have personally tried to contact several different officials here. I've called the 1-800 number. I've contacted different immigration attorneys trying to get contact people. I've gotten different names and different numbers. But when I call those numbers, it just goes blank. I mean, they don't answer the phone. It just keeps ringing and no one is there. Today, a couple days ago, I went here. The office was closed. But I came back again today, and for any of you that has been inside there today, it's just vacant. There's nobody in there. It seems as though no one wants to listen to what's happening out here, or no one wants to give us a response. The only thing that we want to know is if this is a detainee center, if there's anybody that they are detaining, we want to make sure that they're taken care of, they're treated humanely, that they have food, that they have clothes, that they have toiletries, and we'd like to know the size of the place. We'd like to know how much food that they're having to provide. We want some answers, and right now we're not getting it. So we're in here together, and I'm here to stand with you, and I love you all.
Yeah. All right. That was State Representative Gail Finney. Now, a couple of takeaways from something like that. Scott, is number one, you're right. Now, I'm not too concerned about, the human quality at the county jail because, I mean, that is more transparent. If you want to, you're able to do a tour through it. I'm able to do a tour through it. I'm sure our elected officials would be able to if they chose to do so. But it is
why don't they choose to do so? Because, I mean, to me, that's who's relevant because they're the ones who are potential voters. I mean, these illegals aren't going to be voting for them, if ever.
Right. And
but
now, again, I mean,
there will at least get a chance to vote at one time or another.
Exactly.
And I would be surprised if they were to vote for somebody who didn't even come down there to look and see what their conditions were.
And what's going on. No, you're right. I mean, it is, and this is the ongoing argument and the ongoing frustration that we have with the progressive side of the aisle, to where it seems like in many cases that they are more concerned about an individual who's not supposed to be here in the first place, and they're more concerned about them than they are about the American citizen. We always joke about it, to some degree it's a joke, but when we talk about immigration and illegal immigration, to where really the U.S. citizen becomes the second-class citizen to the progressives because, well, to heck with the U.S. citizen, we need to be focusing on the illegal alien, and we need to be focusing on the DACA recipient. We need to be focusing on the children that are illegal. When we have a foster care program in the state of Kansas right now to where we lost 20 kids. We didn't know where they were. We had no idea where they were when it came to this whole foster care program and DCF. And where'd the kids go? I don't know. But we're more concerned about the 50 kids at the villages up in Topeka of the illegal aliens that are separated from their families. And by golly, we better get some answers there. By golly, we better send them back to their families. And by golly, we better reunite them with their families. And that's going to be the number one priority. I just saw the story where many legislators have been on the Democrat side, and Governor Collier did as well, but did the tour up there, tried to make sure the conditions there for the children were fine, trying to take care of them, when the majority of them are, by the way, asylum seekers that are actually here legally and supposed to be here. They ended up sending some of the illegal children that had been separated from their families to the villages in Topeka, and that was the big issue. I didn't hear that same type of outcry from Democrats when it came to children missing out of our own governmental system in the state of Kansas. Who's the priority in these situations?
Well, you got people separated from their families in the Sedgwick County Jail, as well as other county jails around Kansas, as well as the prisons up north of here. So are they investigating and checking the concerns of these people? I mean, they aren't going to see their families. Why aren't they looking into that matter?
Mm-hmm. It's a great point, Scott. I appreciate it. I'm glad you brought it up because it is I think you read my mind. It is the beautiful, perfect segue into what we needed to comment on. After this type of mentality, after this type of, in my opinion, hypocrisy, where they are more concerned about illegal aliens, they want to abolish the rule of law, abolish ICE, the whole protest that we saw last week. After all of this type of shenanigans, the loud minority, the fringe ideology in the community, the negative attacks that we see day in and day out, while they try and promote love and acceptance, except for anybody who disagrees with them, or they demonize anybody that disagrees with them, it's time for the silent majority to speak out, to speak up. What do we always say at the end of the show? It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, always speak some reason. That's what we need to do. It's time for us to rise up and make that voice heard. It is official. We've been talking about ways to try and show our support in a positive way, not to counter anybody else, not to be negative against anybody else, but to be a positive movement, to do something positive in the community, to support the rule of law, to support law enforcement who enforces the rule of law to make sure our community is a safe place to be, to support ICE and to support Border Patrol and to support custom enforcement and to support Homeland Security and support these individuals who their job is to make sure that you and I can go to work without having issues, to make sure that we can actually live a peaceful, happy life without actually having someone with negative intent wanting to harm us on a daily basis, to make sure that if someone's going to try and come here to the U.S., that it's going to be for the right intent and purposes, and that's what the purpose of these individuals are. And because of that, what are we seeing right now? We saw protests in, I forget where it was, Washington, D.C., I think. We saw protests, individuals showing up wanting to protest ICE with signs saying abolish ICE as they're raiding a home of human traffickers and saving children from these human traffickers, selling them into slavery. These ICE members raiding this house, stopping these horrible individuals, these absolutely horrible animals. And yeah, I know we get called racist for that, right? Because we're stopping animals, horrible, evil human beings who are trying to sell children into human trafficking. ICE raids that and stops it, and we have protesters wanting to show up and abolish ICE. This is the sickness from the left-wing mentality. And we need to have a positive movement. It's official. We're partnering up with Kansas Rallies with this. We're going to be talking with them today. More information to come on that. But I'm really excited. This Saturday from 11 to 1, we've been hyping this up. We've been talking about it. It's finally going to happen. And you want to talk about an absolute grassroots campaign to where me, myself, and I kind of orchestrated this and figured out how to make this happen. I've never put on a rally before. I've never done this before. But I need your support. I need your help on this one, and let's show up en masse. We posted a Facebook event, and we'll share it all over Facebook, but it's going to be from this Saturday, 11 to 1, downtown Wichita, 510 North Main Street, right at the courthouse, downtown. 510 North Main Street. It's going to be right there in front of the courthouse, the same place where we had the Second Amendment rally a few weeks ago, and I'm really excited about this event. I'm really excited about it. Right now, I'm going to be speaking. We have a letter from Congressman Ron Estes. He's going to be in Washington, D.C., not going to be able to attend physically, but he is sending a letter of support and a little speech that I will read on his behalf. We have State Representative John Whitmer speaking. We have State Senator Ty Masterson speaking. We have Wichita Mayor Jeff Longwell or Vice Mayor Bryan Frye, whichever one's able to attend. I spoke with the mayor a little bit yesterday. One of them is going to be speaking on behalf of the community in support of law enforcement. And tentatively, I have not got confirmation yet, but they've shown interest and said they'd love to come if they can make it in their schedule. Governor Jeff Collier and or Lieutenant Governor Tracy Mann. Secretary of State Chris Kobach to talk about the voter ID stuff when it comes to immigration and when it comes to law enforcement, and potentially Sedgwick County Sheriff Jeff Easter and or Wichita Police Chief Gordon Ramsey. All of them tentative. They've shown interest. We've reached out to them. I have not got a confirmation yet, but at least confirmed the Congressman Estes support, State Representative John Whitmer, State Senator Ty Masterson, and at least Wichita Mayor Jeff Longwell and or Vice Mayor Bryan Frye. So we got already a great guest lineup. If we can get, even if we pull this off on the shoestring and we get 20 people to come out, that's happy for me. At least we showed our support. We will be blasting this out to the media as well. We're going to get the media attention. This is the response to the negativity that we saw last week. This is our positive response that we talked about. We were frustrated with what was going on last week. We were frustrated with the attacks that were going on with individuals wanting to try and do the right thing in the community. and the absolute assault to try and destroy these individuals, this is that response. If you're able to make it, we'd love to see you out there Saturday from 11 to 1, 510 North Main Street, right at the courthouse, right in front of that. We're going to have the speakers. We'll have the great event. Come out, say hi. We'd love to see you. This is what this is truly like the grassroots movement, because it's starting right here. Just you and I thinking that we need to do something in a positive step. This is how we do it. We'd love to see you out there. We'll touch on it throughout this week. We may get some of the speakers on the show to tease a little bit as well. But come on out this Saturday. It's going to be a lot of fun as we get to make the positive influence in the community, letting the media know that negativity of wanting to abolish the rule of law is not the way to go. Letting the media, letting the progressives, letting everybody in the community know that we are the silent majority, but yet we've had enough. We don't want to see this negativity, and that we're going to do this in a positive light. We do support our local law enforcement. God bless our law enforcement. We do support ICE and the way that they keep us safe and the way that we actually welcome legal immigrants into our country. That's what we support. We support the rule of law. And that's why, and by the way, we're naming this rally Making America Great Again, because we're going to do a Make America Great Again rally, just President Trump's not going to be there. But we support President Donald Trump and what he's doing. We support the conservative Republican trend that's happening right now under President Donald J. Trump and what's going on in the nation. And when it comes to law enforcement, when it comes to immigration, when it comes to building the law, when it comes to these issues, we support that movement, and we're seeing the positive impact because of it. We've had it on social media for just about 12 hours now. I posted it last night, and we've already had about 50 people. And I made a mistake. I posted it twice because the first event that I created was under a different show page with the game plan over there on the sports side. I don't know why it created the admin and the host of it as them, so I had to create a secondary one. So there's two floating around out there right now, but between the two, with the different people, there's roughly about 50 people already within a 12-hour window that said that they're interested and want to go to this. So we'll have more information on it. We'll show you the lockdown speakers as we continue to get those in. We'll blast this out to the media. We're going to do everything we can to make this a big rally. Come out, show your support, and let's show our support for law enforcement. Let's show our positive impact that we can have in the community. And I guarantee you that we're going to have protesters at this as well. The ones that were protesting last week are probably not going to like the fact that we're doing this rally this week, and they're probably going to show up, which means all the more power for us to show up en masse, to not acknowledge them, but to show our positive impact that we have on the community and that what we support within our community. 22 minutes past the hour. This is The Voice of Reason. Lots more to get to. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Being in the politically charged environment that we live in currently today, I think it's the appropriate time to be able to have a bit of a rally to show the positive impact that what we can do when we show up to something, and that's what we're going to do this Saturday. Again, 11 to 1, come check it out. The pro-immigration. Now, look, it's not an anti-immigration rally. We support ICE, we support Border Patrol, we support Homeland Security, but we support legal immigration. I read the story the day after the 4th of July, the fact that on Independence Day, over 18,000 individuals across the nation got naturalized into the U.S. system, becoming U.S. citizens. That right there is so heartwarming. That is one of the nicest, most amazing stories that you could read on Independence Day, that someone cared so much and so deeply about becoming a naturalized citizen because they wanted to be part of America. They wanted to be part of the United States. We welcome that with open arms, no matter where you came from around the world, no matter what you're doing. We love that and we appreciate it very much so. Is that a racist comment? Because if you remember, anybody that, by the way, doesn't allow illegal immigrants to just openly walk across our border and do whatever they want to, we're apparently racist. And that's what the mentality's been so far, and we're not going to tolerate that anymore. This is why we need to stand up and actually make our voice heard on exactly what we believe. To let the media know, to let the progressives know, to let our own side know, let the community know that we are the lovey-dovey, caring ones that actually want people to do it, but we do it with tough love. We do it with the mentality that if you follow the rules, then you're going to be successful. You're going to succeed. You're going to do very well, and that's what we're all about. So more information to come on that. We'll have hopefully even some more speakers come in for that rally coming up this weekend. 316-721-8255. We got a lot to get to today. Coming up after the bottom of the hour news. As usual, it is a Tuesday. The man himself, Wichita City Council member Bryan Frye, going to be in studio with us for a bit. Plus, the Kansas gubernatorial candidates on the Republican side and the Democrat side are talking about the tariffs imposed by the Trump administration. How are those handling? The Republicans are debating on how to respond to the tariffs with, actual dialogue on productivity. The Democrats see the opportunity of the Achilles heel and go after Republicans for supporting Donald Trump tariffs and how bad they are for farmers and for the community and so on and so forth. So we'll comment on those. Which side actually has the momentum when it comes to the discussions of tariffs? That's going to be a big talking point going into the midterm elections this year for legislative seats, for congressional seats, for the governor's race. It's going to be a huge talking point. So we'll have all that and more coming up in hour number 3, along with, of course, hour number 2. We're going to be having David Hill with One Spark. He'll be joining us in just a little bit at the top of the 8 o'clock hour as well. Bottom of the hour news coming up, your phone calls when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. Making it happen, my friends.
When a headline just isn't enough,
Is that all you got?
it's time to wake up the right way.
All right.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, 1480 AM and 1025 FM, KQAM.
Welcome back into The Voice of Reason, kicking off a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday, doing the thing, having more fun than what we're supposed to on a daily basis, waking you up the right way. That's what I'm talking about. It is time. We do this every single Tuesday.
We built this city.
We love having him on the program, Wichita City Council member and Vice Mayor, by the way. I don't think we'd really promote you as that, really, but you are Vice Mayor as well.
I am, yes.
Yeah.
It's a pretty cool thing to do. That means I get to fill in for the mayor quite a bit when he's out of town or sick or whatever, or his schedule is just too busy to do everything.
Sure.
So
He is a busy guy.
Yes, and so that's pretty cool. It's kind of neat to do some things and represent the city in that light. So
Always a good time. Bryan Frye, good to have you back. Happy 4th of July to you.
Yes.
It's after the holiday last week.
Yep.
Which I know, let's first off jump into
let's talk right about
Let's
it. Yep.
talk about that. The fireworks. I had to laugh. I was driving home that night at about 9 o'clock on 4th of July, running the Wingnuts game here at the studio and coming home and watching the fireworks. And I think as a 360 panoramic view, there were more fireworks this year than I had seen in the 3 years that I've been in Wichita.
Yeah, July 4th is July 4th. I mean, people are going to shoot fireworks. They want to celebrate freedom, right? I get that. I think the days leading up to it, we had less fireworks than we've had in the past. I think people respected that we were trying to enforce the ordinance and really do something different.
Sure.
July 4th, we wrote 133 tickets, which is about $33,000, which is about what we spent on enforcing those 130. So it's kind of a wash. I think I would like to see us get to a point where we enforce the rules that we have in place.
Sure.
But on July 4th, let's have an exception and let's maybe allow to shoot anything that's allowed in the state of Kansas. And make sure people know that and give them lots of warning and lots of planning that July 4th is going to be July 4th.
It's going to be it. And I will give credit because you're right. I mean, the days leading up to, usually starting a week prior, you're starting to see a few booms here and there with the big stuff. I didn't see any of that until 4th of July night. So I guess in that enforcement, hopefully that did work in the sense that people were respectful and waited until the night of in order to do that.
Yeah, and I don't think you're ever going to be able to change that. People's desire to celebrate July 4th.
It's the American way. Come on.
America, right?
That's right.
And that's not unique anywhere in the state. I mean, that's what we do.
Yep.
And so, but if we can if we can get to that point, maybe that's the compromise.
Sure.
That the days leading up and the days after, you can't do it. We're going to enforce it, and it's going to be as strong as we enforced it this time around. But maybe on that July 4th day, we allow it.
Well, hopefully we can reconvene and kind of renegotiate that and rediscuss it a little bit. I think we
absolutely.
need to.
Yeah, again, this was a new way of doing it this year.
Mm-hmm.
And so we knew there was going to be some kinks and some things we had to figure out. And,
Sure.
I mean, we had people respond not the way you'd hope they'd respond. We had one lady that hit a firefighter over the head with a Roman candle.
I did hear about that. Mm-hmm.
We would have we had pairs of officers and firefighters going out together, and they'd come up to a scene and there'd be 30, 40 people.
Sure.
That's not a confrontation you need to have.
Sure.
Right? But again, we learn and we'll figure it out. And we got another year to work this through.
Yep.
But I think the days leading up to it were better than I've ever seen. So
Sure.
I was pleased with that.
That is very true. Now, leading up to, how much of an impact or how big are the firework displays when it comes to New Year's in about 6 months? Are they about the same?
Not,
or not
really.
nearly as
The
much?
biggest problem we have on New Year's is people just shooting guns off in the air.
Then you got that.
Yeah, that's always been an issue. People, for whatever reason, think that's the thing to do on
Still the
January
old cowboy
1.
tradition.
Yeah, and that's just really dangerous, obviously. But the city, and there's plenty of fireworks opportunities. You mentioned the Wingnuts; they do Friday night fireworks. The River Festival still has fireworks.
Sure.
So there's plenty of opportunity to see fireworks throughout the year.
Sure.
So
no, absolutely good. I'm glad that we're going to reconvene. Hopefully, be able to, as you mentioned, kind of the work in progress, and we can see what we're going to do for next year. Last week, you guys did not have a city council meeting,
right?
Because of
the
4th of July holiday and everything. This week, now that we're past the holiday, we got another. It's away, so we got anher one. It's kind of heating up with some great big issues.
Right. We've actually got a lot of great things happening over the next couple of weeks. Today, we have two very large IRB projects. One is for Cargill, and this is not related to the headquarters building. This is a new biodiesel plant. It's about an $87 million investment that they're placing to build a new plant to replace the plant they have. And it's it meets all of our criteria. It's got they're going to add employees in the $80,000 to $100,000 salary range.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, this is a great project, to have that kind of a significant infrastructure investment. And they're just asking for the property tax abatement and the sales tax abatement, but it meets our return of investment criteria. Then there's an apartment project that they are one that was built in the 50s. They're going to rebuild, renovate it, and it's only asking for sales tax abatement, no property tax abatement, which is unusual, but that's fantastic.
Sure.
And it's got an amazing return on its investment, and it's at a place at Kellogg and Oliver that these apartments were built in the 50s, and they're really dilapidated, so that's a nice investment we're seeing in what we call the urban infill environment.
Okay.
Instead of the suburbs.
Right.
Right. The areas that we already have developed. Our annual cultural funding allocation, where we help support our arts and cultural operations.
Okay.
This is something that you have to apply for. You have to meet performance criteria. It's very stringent. It's a very time-intensive process to apply and get these grants.
Sure.
But they support all of our different art and cultural institutions across the city.
How big is that type of industry in the city?
Investment-wise, if I remember right, it's several $1 million, probably about $80 million worth, if I remember right, on an annual basis that cultural arts brings to the city.
Okay.
And I remember this from like 3 years ago when they were doing significant promotional awareness of cultural arts in the city.
Sure.
And I'm sure that's only increased since then.
Sure.
But it's a significant investment. You consider all the people that are employed in the cultural arts, whether it's music theater or Botanica or different Wichita Art Museum, different things like that, and then different exhibits that come into town and so forth. So
Sure.
it's a very big business. We support it with about $420,000 worth of city funds, and it's 20 different operational grants, one emerging grant, and then 3 artist grants. So
Sure.
we spread it out pretty evenly.
Very good.
We have frozen that number from last year's number, so there's no increase. And this is to try to keep in line with our budget stuff.
Sure.
But again, it's a pretty significant investment. It's a commitment that the city's made in cultural arts.
Sure. Which I think pays off for the community as well.
Oh, absolutely.
I do.
I mean, that's part of the quality of our life.
Right.
Right. And so It's very important to have. And then the big piece we got this week is the next step in the creation of our new water treatment plant. Our main water treatment plant was built in 1939. Okay, think about that. That's a long time. And it is the single source water supply for 500,000 people.
Sure.
And again, not only the individuals, you and I, but also businesses. It's part of national defense with McConnell Air Force Base. We supply water there.
Sure.
All of the industry that we supply. So protecting that water supply and the operation and making it clean and usable is a very important piece. Unfortunately, that's about $500 million.
Sure.
That's with a B, right? So we got to figure out how to do this the most efficient way, the least expensive way. And the next step of that is what we call a WIFIA grant, which is a federal loan program that allows us to borrow money from them cheaper than we can get anywhere else.
Okay.
And so we have to send a letter of intent saying we want to apply, and with that, then they allow us to apply.
Gotcha.
So there's a whole process, but we have to spell out how we're going to do this.
That's going to be a heck of a project. Now, it reminds me that, just like they kind of say with cars, that, they don't make them like that, nowadays. Because, 1936, and we're still supplying water to 500,000 people, in the city is kind of a cool thing to think about. Now, are we talking about completely overhauling it and getting a brand new system in, or are we talking about just upgrading some of the parts or getting new parts in there? What are we looking at with this?
Unfortunately, from something that's built in 1930s, there's not many parts you can find anymore.
Got to go to the antique store for that one.
We've done a lot of duct tape on that building.
Sure.
No, this would be a new water treatment plant.
Okay.
Capable of handling 120 million gallons a day. And it would have redundancy because the current plant doesn't have redundancy.
Okay.
So that's a big red flag right there too, right?
Sure.
So the new one we've identified a site in northwest Wichita, and it would be a brand new facility, so we could build it while we still have this one operational.
Okay.
So that way,
not shutting off any water.
Not shutting. No, we can't afford to do that. And then. And it's about a 5-year build project. These things don't just come up overnight, right? So,
sure.
But it would be completely separate, and again, water and redundancy. So
very good, very good.
But it's a big project, and we got to get started on it. The application and the process through government takes time, a little bit. So I don't even think we're talking about building until sometime in late 19, maybe even 20.
Okay.
By the time we get it all through. So
and
again, we'll have to continue to use duct tape and baling wire to keep the existing one operational. So.
Sure. At least the good news is that with a process like that, and with the time that is on there, make sure that it's done right, make sure it's done efficiently, and then we have that transition where it's going to be nice and smooth. So I guess on the positive side, always looking on the optimistic side there, the glass half full, is that we do have some time to make sure that it's done right.
Absolutely. This is one of the things that when I ran for office, I was very one of my key things was infrastructure and making sure that we're developing and building for the future, taking care of what we have, better care of what we have. And we're seeing that with the roads that we've been doing, and the water supply, and that water treatment plant is paramount because you can't grow your community if you don't have that kind of infrastructure.
Sure. And
we need this community to keep growing and adding more people. We got to retain and attract a workforce.
Sure.
That's our number one priority. And you can't do that if you don't have good roads, a safe community, and clean water.
Sure.
So,
now, talking about this, would there be any discussion potentially now or in the future about raising the rates of water for individuals?
So right now, in order to do this, there will have to be rate increases. And we're trying to do it, spread it out over a longer period of time so that it's not a hit to your pocketbook. Water is an enterprise fund, and so it doesn't get additional taxes. It doesn't come from property taxes. It doesn't come from sales tax. The water department, water utility, water and sewer is only allowed to spend what they bring in through revenue that they generate from water supply.
Right.
So that means that to do an investment of this type, they can't do it with just the existing rate structure. We will have to increase, and we have been doing smaller increases over the last few years to try to get throughout the city water treatment plants and sewer treatment and so forth up to par where it needs to be. But this one's such a large expense,
right?
that there will have to be some rate increases in future years, but we're trying to keep it very small. By doing this WIFIA financing, and then also through the state revolving loan fund, we hope to be able to save $80 to $90 million that way. So we're looking at everywhere we can save, right? Sure. One of the things we're going to do with this is probably design, build, operate, which is a hybrid approach, to, again, do some cost savings, because we want this rate impact to be as minimal as possible.
Sure.
So, but yes, it will have to have some increases.
Sure. Well, and the good news is that you guys have a plan to try and offset that as much as you can. And as you said, I mean, money's not really coming out from tax otherwise, so this is going to be money coming from people using the water to be able to pay for that upgrade in the water. Now, in the long term, after those rate increases are up there and we get it done, we get it kind of paid off, then we could potentially see it come back down, because it is going to be more efficient that way.
Right. It will come back down to a more reasonable level. I mean, again, we have some of the lowest water rates in the country. We're in the top 50. So, I mean, we are blessed to have affordable, clean water, and we want to continue to keep it that way, because, again, that's an attraction for people that want to move here and live here. And we got to continue to support the industry that we have, as well as national security. So we got to make this investment.
Sure. Absolutely. Very good. Well, that's going to be a huge discussion point for the next upcoming weeks at the Wichita City Council. That's every single week. If people do want to show up again, where and how can they do so to be able to have their voice heard, be able to listen to what you guys are doing?
Yep. So today, council meeting is at 9 a.m., and we're at City Hall building, which is Central and Main, on the southwest corner, and we start at 9, and we always have, by the time we get through some of the proclamations and public speakers, the full meat of the meeting starts about 9:15, 9:20. But today, we'll have some good discussion, I believe, on these items, and it's a good, really get back in the saddle after the holiday break, right?
Ready to go again.
Yeah, we have. And we continue to work on the budget. The budget cycle continues. The manager will be presenting the 2019 budget next week. It'll be a first blush for everyone. It's been going out to our district advisory boards, and people have been seeing it, but the manager will formally present it next week.
Okay.
And then there should come opportunities for public input, and then in late August, we will approve it. So we've got a very aggressive summer. Again, no rest, but it's been...
It's the way we roll.
Yeah, exactly. And it's always a good time. I mean, I love the public input. I love hearing from folks. And so we just keep at it.
Let's keep at it. That it is. City Council member Mr. Bryan Frye. By the way, speaking of his wine, I know you guys are working on some details, but hopefully we can see you guys out there this Saturday for the rally. It's going to be a lot of fun. As I know we've talked about with the law enforcement in the area and with the local law enforcement in the community, a great way to kind of show our support in that way as a response to some of the events that's happened over the last couple of weeks in town. And we're looking forward to seeing you guys out there.
Absolutely. I was talking to a buddy of mine, Jeff, and he's probably listening right now. He's a good old boy from Protection, Kansas. And, we're talking about this event and letting him know about it, and trying to get him out there for it.
Very good.
And just talking to other folks, letting them know, because I think it's important what you're doing. I appreciate you doing it. Absolutely. And we need to support law, absolutely. And
it's crazy that we have to have a rally just to support the rule of law.
Exactly.
Yeah. Back in the day, we wouldn't have to worry about that, right?
No. I don't know what that says about us, but I'm going to try to be there. I've got to go out of town Saturday, but I don't have to leave till late afternoon, so I'm going to try and come by early if I can. So.
Very good. Well, we love it. Bryan Frye, Wichita City Council member. Look forward to hopefully seeing you out there, and look forward to chatting with you again next Tuesday.
Absolutely. Thank you, sir.
Always a great time. 8 minutes at the top of the hour. Let's take a break. We got some calls on the line. We'll get to you as well. Wrapping up hour number 2. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Welcome back into the program, wrapping up hour number 2. Thanks again to Wichita City Council member Bryan Frye, swinging in studio. Always love chatting with him on a Tuesday for our city update. Again, City Council meeting today. They're kicking back off again. Just imagine the water that you and I are using in the city is coming from a distribution plant built in 1936. We have some work to do to upgrade that. It's cool because I tell you what, they don't make them like that anymore, do they? Kind of like the old vehicle. The best vehicle that you have, right, is the 1970s truck in the backyard that still runs. Whereas, some of the newer stuff, it's great, it's cool, it's luxurious, it's fancy, but at the same time, can you rack it up to 400,000 miles? I don't know. I don't know. How many times? Or the computer chip. Oh, the computer chip. I got to replace the whole thing. They pretty much need a whole new motor. I mean, nothing against the new vehicles because they're really cool and really beautiful, but at the same time, sometimes you just can't beat a classic. So we'll have more discussions on that. I'm sure that's going to come up quite a bit when it comes to the budget, when it comes to how we're going to fund that and what we're going to do with our water treatment plant here in the city. Your thoughts and calls as well when we come back. Plus, really excited when we come back in hour number 3. We always love to talk about not just the political side of things, but the community-oriented. Remember Home Improvement, the TV show, Tim Allen? And during Tool Time, it was, we're not just about home improvement, we're about mail improvement. Well, on this show, we're not just about political improvement, we're about community involvement as well, which is what we'll talk about coming up in hour number 3. Plus your phone calls, too. We have some divisive comments being made from the Democrats, Republicans, and the gubernatorial race we'll touch on at the end of the show. Your phone calls as well. Remember, this is your show. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. Hour number 3, The Voice of Reason, coming up in a minute. Stay here.
It's time for Reason.
If you're going to run as a Republican, then you need to uphold Republican values. Less government, limited taxes, less regulation, understanding the duties of the government. These are things that are the platform of the Republican Party. They've been the platform of the Republican Party for a really long time, and now Republican legislators need to uphold that, respect it, and fight for it, rather than saying they will when they run for office and then turning around and doing something different.
This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Then I get on my knees and pray.
All right.
We don't get fooled again.
That's the way we roll. Welcome into it.
Don't get fooled again.
Yeah, broadcasting live out of the heart of the nation here in Wichita, Kansas on the Big Talker, 1480 on the AM side, 102.5 on the FM side, KQAM. Simulcasting on TV, KGPT TV, channel 2610. Welcome aboard. It's great to have you along today on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday as we roll right along. I think it's a very patriotic, happy-go-lucky day. I mean, come on, we saw a conservative Supreme Court justice nominated last night. We'll get your thoughts on that. We have our rally coming up this weekend. It's going to be a lot of fun. They're supporting law enforcement, supporting the rule of law, supporting our immigration policy when it comes to, actually enforcing the border to some degree. And we'll talk more about that in just a little bit. 316-721-8255. 316-721-TALK. If you want to join, you're more than welcome to do so. We have the Facebook Live feed up and rolling as well. Facebook.com/1480 KQAM. As you know, this is not just a political show, but it's ways to make our lives better, which is what conservatism is really. It's ways to make your individual life better. It's not the groupthink mentality. It's not the collective mentality. It's the individual opportunity. In America, which is why we have people trying to flood our borders, because we are the country with streets paved with gold. We are the nation that gives you more opportunity than anybody else. And when someone falls down in our community, it's our duty to help pick them back up. And it's done, by the way, through private individuals and private organizations, not through government redistribution, because all that does is bring more people down. And that's why I'm so proud. I've seen certain organizations and numerous different organizations in the community here in Wichita. I've been here for about 3 years. And I got to say, I'm blown away by the amount of support that our community has. When we see protests and rallies that go on that happened like last week, and we see some of the anger and the frustration and the hate, it takes away from the positive that we see in our community, which I think is really one of the most positive in any community in the nation. I'm really excited to have in studio with us for a little bit to talk about one of these organizations with one spark. He's Mr. David Hill with us. David, how are you, my friend?
I'm great. Thank you very much for having me on today. We're excited.
I appreciate you coming in here. And you were actually recommended from one of our listeners who's helped you guys out with some stuff that you've done, especially when it came to the tornado relief in Eureka. How's that looking so far with what's going on out there?
Listen, I can't say enough that there were so many people that went in to volunteer. I don't think if they would have got the number of volunteers that they did, they still would be months and months and months away. Listen, a lot of that's cleaned up. They're now in the rebuild phase. But the beauty of it is, we got called by several people to go, and they had a lot of water and a lot of chips, but no food. And so we cooked hamburgers, we cooked hot dogs, and we cooked pork. And we fed over 3,200 meals.
Wow.
And, when you talk about we're a small foundation. We're not funded by the government. We won't take anything from the government. Every dollar we get is either through a company that my wife and I own that funds it, or individual people that like the fact that we, not saying anything about anybody else, we have no paid employees, we have no expenses, so every dollar that we get goes to feed a homeless person, goes to feed somebody like in a tornado situation where there is no food.
Sure. And that's a scary thought. I mean, all your livelihood completely gone. I love these types of organizations because I've got to help out before. In high school, I got to go over to Sri Lanka right after the tsunami that happened back in 2005 and got to go the following summer. And I tell you what, 6 months later, it looked like it had just happened the night before. People's homes still leveled. They were cooking out of their chimneys in their fireplaces where their home used to be on a concrete slab, and they're sitting there and cooking their dinners off of that. And to me, that was such a heartbreaking thing. I can only imagine when we saw the hurricane down in Texas just a few months ago, and we see something like this with the tornadoes or wildfires when they go through certain areas. It is just, when you just think about the fact that all your livelihood, everything that you had, completely gone, it's a really scary and devastating thing to think about.
It is. When you talk about showing kindness and love, it doesn't take money, but Eureka is a very unique town. Mm-hmm. I can tell you that the people were so kind to us and so appreciative of a warm cooked meal.
Sure.
That I've been to, that was our 82nd disaster that we've been to, that we fed at. We fed in Oklahoma, we fed in Texas, we fled in Florida. But Kansas people have a unique smell, touch, and way about them that when you give them something, they want to give back.
Sure.
And it was just an unbelievable situation for everybody that volunteered.
I can only imagine. Now, how big is Eureka? I don't even know the size.
2,500 people.
Okay, so it is a relatively smaller community there, but again, so many people that just came out. How big of a force did you have coming out to help out that area?
We took 6 people, and we got a few more, so we had about 8 or 9 people that were helping us to feed. The biggest thing is the place where we were feeding, they were doing so much stuff inside, whether I cannot even begin to tell you how many home-cooked cakes there were. And we were doing the meats and stuff like that, but they were preparing, and they would come out and say, hey, we need 90 meals, or we need 100 meals, we need 60 meals. And our first time there, we fed 982 at dinner.
That's fantastic.
And it's not us. It's just a group of people that came together to make a bad situation better.
You can't prepare for anything like that, but having Eureka, the town of Eureka, being hit like 3 different times in the last decade by tornadoes, are they somewhat prepared for this type of disaster, or is it still just a new shock and a new shock and awe kind of aspect every time it happens?
I don't think they can ever be prepared because, when you look at the last one, they had very little warning. So that 2 years ago, they had a tornado. A year ago, they had a microburst, and now they have another tornado. And you got to realize that we the Kansans, if you want to help, make sure wherever you're helping is going to put that money back in that community, because we've seen so much money given so many places and we're not seeing it there. But when you talk about a way to pitch in and help, people were making cakes, they were bringing water, they were doing so many things that they think, oh, my little deal doesn't make a difference. It's the beauty of a spark, and some people call it a random act of kindness. We don't believe in random acts of anything. So a spark is cool. When you put multiple sparks together, it creates an inferno, and that's what happened in Eureka, that so many sparks came together to make a perfect storm of fire that it just blessed so many people.
Sure, absolutely. Well, we appreciate what you guys do out there in Eureka and what happened there. They're in the rebuilding process, as you mentioned. Talking about that spark and the numerous small sparks that turn into that big flame and that torch that goes on, talk about some of the other things that you guys do with One Spark, some of the other organizations that you work with, some of the projects that you work on throughout the year. We've been blessed. Right now, we're working on our Wheels of Hope program. It doesn't matter if you're a male or female. If you're in an abusive situation, we've learned that a car is one of the greatest things to get somebody motivated to move on. And people say, well, they're the bus system. And I want you to think about something. If I was going to leave an abusive situation and I was going to now go stand at a bus stop, guess where? I'm like an open duck to be shot. And so we now have given away 27 cars that we put in the hands of people. We don't sell it to them. We bring them in. We have mechanics that come in and try to fix everything we can, and we put them in the hands. And we've also given a car to a little girl that lost her kidneys, and then unfortunately she couldn't make it to Children's Mercy.
when she was supposed to on time because she didn't have a ride and lost her new kidney. And so listen, everything we do is geared to making our community better. Wheels of Hope, we're looking for people that may want to donate a car. I can't take a junk car because I need something that's going to run.
Reliable, sure.
We have our fire truck of hope. We just bought a new fire truck that so many kids and even adults like riding in. And so we've given 966 rides to people that are sick. And so it's a cool thing that we do, that we ride in. And we've worked with Firehouse Subs gives us the helmets, and then we're making little coats out of used fireman suits, and we really need a lot more because we want to have 30 or 40 different sizes so we can put the kids into a suit, and then they feel like they're a fireman for that brief period of time. You know, we also every month feed about 15 to 20,000 meals to the homeless and needy in Wichita. We do charge them. They have to give us a hug. You know, we realize that it's one thing to feed somebody's stomach, but it's another thing to feed their soul.
Sure.
And that human touch is really what they're after.
Sure. That's fantastic. It's really good to hear that. I mean, it breaks my heart when you hear something like, you know, the children that's hurting or the homeless that's going on, but the hand up, not the handout, is definitely what we need. And I think sometimes that line kind of grays a little bit when it comes to that hand up versus the handout. And something like this is really, as you mentioned, what really people just thrive for. And that really helps them just get back on their feet again.
You know, for us, we've been really blessed. We work with a HOT team. That's a homeless outreach team. It's a group of police officers that give their heart and soul to making our community better, but also their endeavors to getting the homeless off the streets, into housing, and into jobs.
Sure.
The one thing that we do is if you eat with us, we do ask you to give back.
Sure.
We painted 492 homes last year with homeless labor. A lot of them are not lazy. We've taken over the last 20 years, we've taken an enormous amount of them off the streets, got them into permanent housing, and got them jobs. Right now, today, we'll have 10 people in our shop training them skills.
Sure.
I'm not one that wants to continue to give a fish when I can give them a fishing pole and the tackle and let them now become self-sufficient.
Sure, absolutely. I love it. We're talking with David Hill. One Spark is the organization. Let's take a break. Your thoughts and calls, if you want to chime in here, you're welcome to as well. 316-721-8255. One more segment with David as we talk about some of the organizations, some of the programs that they work on. Also, if you want to get involved, how to do so. We'll talk about all that and more when we come back. This is The Voice of Reason on KQAM. Stay here.
You're listening to The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier on the Big Talker, KQAM.
Reason 23 minutes past the hour. Great to have you along today on a hashtag Patriotic Tuesday. Rocking and rolling, my friends. Hanging out with David Hill. One Spark is the organization. Got a few more minutes with him. And David, actually talk about the very beginning of the organization. How did this get started?
You know, I always tell people I had 9 PhDs in jerkology. I was not a kind person. And my father was a very, very, very mean person. And he had never told me he loved me. And he had always said he was going to commit suicide. And we were closing a deal. And my personal assistant walked in and told me on a note, your father said he loved you. I chartered a plane home and drove about 2 hours. And I pulled in his driveway, and it looked like he had passed out. We had committed suicide. So we got everything buttoned up. And I went to a small cafe, and I told the gal at the front, I said, I don't want to speak to anybody. I don't want to look at anybody. I don't even want my waitress breathing on me. And she kind of smiled and said, I got the waitress for you. And one side of the restaurant had 10 or 12 people in it. The other side had no one.
Sure.
Well, I went to the side with no one. And I sat down, and a lady in her upper 70s, probably 78, 79, came and slammed a glass of water down. And the water went all over my Bruno Maillet shoes and my suit. And it was like 2 gladiators going at it. It took about 1.2 seconds to figure out there was 1 gladiator and 1 mouse. I happened to be the mouse. I may have had 9 PhDs in jerkology. She had 30. I was not a person of faith at that point in time, and for some reason, I wanted her to sit down and talk to me, and I said, hey, can I buy you a cup of coffee and get you a piece of pie? Well, she told me what I could do with the pie and coffee. It was not eat or drink it. I'm very persistent. At about an hour into the conversation, she sat down, and you got to realize I had found my father who had committed suicide, and she said, "Hey, crybaby, tell me what your problem is." Mm-hmm. And I wanted to drag the lady out and throw her under my car and run her over. And I told her the story of finding my father, and she said, "Is that all you have? That's why you're crying?" I thought, man, you are a heartless woman. I said, "Well, tell me what your problem is." She said, "Well, my husband didn't tell me he had pancreatic cancer, and we moved home. Shortly after that, he died." I said, "And that's worse than me finding my father who'd committed suicide?" She said, "Shut up. Here's the rest of the story." She said, my two grandchildren drove home for the funeral. They were home for a week and then headed back to Illinois. They were about an hour from home. A car crossed the median, hit them head on, and killed all four of them.
Oh, my gosh.
So in a matter of just a short time, she lost her entire family. And if you play chess, I knew it was checkmate. I knew her life was worse than mine. And I sat and talked to her. It was right about noon, and I didn't leave till 10 o'clock. And we talked about everything. And I wrote on a napkin when I got done, I said, "Little do you understand the kind words you gave a young man's heart today. Changed my heart from self-pity to gratitude. Thank you very much." My bill was $17.49, and I left a $100 bill and a business card, and I walked out. I was still a jerk. I went back to work, and about 2 weeks later, I got a box in the mail. I opened it up, and the roll of napkins where you can roll it out in the bathroom, tear it off, she had written in red, "Little do you understand the spark you gave an old woman's heart. It changed my heart from despair to knowing that I have a mission left in life till I suck my last breath. Please accept the gift." That was it. I didn't read any more. Gift. She gave me something, so I dropped the note and I looked in the box and I thought, wow, this is weird. She gave me a 45, and I told her I'm an avid hunter, but I don't hunt with a 45 bullet. And as Paul Harvey said, here's the rest of the story. I picked the note back up and I began to read, and she said, "I've been so full of despair and I didn't know what to do until you walked in the door. I was going to commit suicide tonight at 10 o'clock. The only thing that I have fitting to give you is a bullet I was going to commit suicide with. That sits on my mantle in my office. And listen, I think about it every day. It doesn't take money. It takes compassion. It doesn't take anything more than to change this world than somebody taking and having empathy on another soul and listening to them, giving them a hug, saying a kind word. You know, we have a lot of people that I always ask if they remember what a pen is and a piece of paper. And when's the last time you wrote somebody that you love a letter? Don't text it, don't email it, but write with a pen and paper. We do this a lot, and I can tell you I get a lot of emails every day and say, man, it made a massive difference. For us, One Spark is a simple deal. We believe that one spark can change the world. The only unknown is if it will be your spark that changed the world. Will it be your spark that ignites a flame that will never be put out? I'm one person that 20-some years ago started this. We're in 170 countries. We ship out over 5 million One Spark cards every month. So you, the individual listening to this, have more power than I'm 55 years old. One day I'll be gone. My legacy, I have no children, will continue long after I'm gone. The question is, what will you do to the people, you hearing my words today? What is it that you will do today to spark somebody, to put a little joy in somebody else's life? Stop thinking about yourself today. Put somebody else first, and I promise you, your life will change.
Well, I tell you what, that's a hell of a story there, and I appreciate you sharing that. It is. You're absolutely right. I mean, we talk about the spark, the catalyst of what we try and do when it comes to the political activism, but the community activism itself, this is kind of the way to do that. We got about 45 seconds before the bottom of the hour here, but how can people get a hold of you guys if they want to participate?
They can either call us at 945-3051, or they can go to www.1, the numeral 1, don't spell 1 out, onespark.net.
onespark.net. Check it out. And I think, talking about the activism, talking about law enforcement, I'd really love if you guys could participate in the rally that we have coming up this weekend as well, showing that we are involved in the community. We do care about that, and with the respect for law enforcement that we have on side of that as well. We'd love for you guys to come out and support that as well.
We'd love to.
Hey, that'd be great. David, I appreciate it very much, my friend. Good luck with the continuation of what you guys are working on. We'd love to talk to you again.
Thank you very much.
Hey, absolutely. Got to take a break. Bottom of the hour news coming up. It is Open Lines to You when we come back, wrapping up the program. Lots to get to today. And that's a heck of a story. It really makes you think about ways that we can be that spark to make ourselves better. And whether it's community-wise or politically, we can do it. If you don't, no one else is going to. Take that in consideration. This is The Voice of Reason. Stay here.
Republicans and Democrats accountable. This is the Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Oh, making it happen today on a Tuesday. Wrapping up the program today, 35 minutes past the hour. Welcome in 316-721-8255, 316-721-TALK. Thanks again to David Hill coming on with One Spark. And as you know, the rally that we've been working on, the pro-ICE, pro-immigration, pro-law enforcement rally, by supporting the rule of law and supporting those in need the way that we can as a community, being the positive voice in the community. Talking with David, they are going to participate in the rally on Saturday, and we appreciate that very much. We'll have David there to speak a little bit, and they did offer as well to bring the truck and feed everybody that shows up to the rally too, for free. Just handing out some sandwiches and showing support for law enforcement, showing support for the community, showing support for everybody around. So we appreciate that very much. We'll have some more information on that. If you missed it, this Saturday, 11 to 1 o'clock. At 510 North Main Street at downtown, right at the courthouse, the same place we had the Second Amendment rally just a few weeks ago. We're partnering up with Kansas Rallies. I'm going to be talking with them. They're going to help organize some of this as well as we do a positive reinforcement in a response to the protests and some of the national mentality right now of how we hate law enforcement, and we got to hate the cops, and we have to hate the Republicans, and we have to abolish ICE, and how it's just free, open borders for everyone, and how we don't care about the children. It's not true. We do care. We're not racist. It's completely absurd. We're tired of hearing that narrative, and it's time for us to speak out. It's time for the positive message to be heard that we support our community, we support the people that are in it, we support individuals that are coming here legally, we support the rule of law, we support law enforcement, and we support enforcing the border to make sure that we can continue to be happy and healthy and safe and prosper the way that we need to. And that's what this rally is going to be about. As of right now, if you're able to attend, we'd love to see you out there from 11 to 1 o'clock on Saturday this week. I'll be hosting it along with Kansas Rallies, and we're really looking forward to seeing you out there. As of right now, Congressman Ron Estes, he's not able to make it physically. He'll be in Washington, D.C., but sending a letter of support and his message in a response to the calling out of him in the rally and the protest from last week. He'll have that response. I'll be reading that from him to you at the rally. Also, State Representative John Whitmer will be attending. State Senator Ty Masterson will be attending. Wichita Mayor Jeff Longwell or Vice Mayor Bryan Frye, one or the other will be there, or maybe both, to show their support for the community and law enforcement as well. And now David Hill with One Spark will be there serving food and being able to speak as well. Tentatively, we've reached out to a few other individuals, and we'll wait on a final confirmation here soon. But Governor Jeff Collier and or Lieutenant Governor Tracy Mann being able to attend. Secretary of State Chris Kobach hopefully will be able to attend. He wants to be there, whether he can make it or not. We shall see. Along with, we have reached out to Sedgwick County Sheriff Jeff Easter and Wichita Police Chief Gordon Ramsey, both of them tentative as well. We'd love to see law enforcement themselves show up to this rally. And look, I mean, this is you want to talk about an absolute basic grassroots campaign, this is what we're doing. I've never hosted or tried to put on or organize a rally before. Never happened. We'll see how this pans out. If we get 10 people there, if we get 100 people there. Regardless, we'd love to see you out there again this Saturday, 510 North Main Street at downtown at the courthouse. We'll have the rally right in front of it there. We'll have the speakers set up. We'll have a whole bunch of stuff. Apparently, we're going to have food as well, and we appreciate that very much from One Spark and those guys supporting the effort as well with what we can do. Because, look, I mean, the mentality right now is that Republicans and conservatives don't care for immigrants. That's not true. We need to rectify that situation. The narrative is that we don't care about the less fortunate. That's not true. Just because we don't support a socialized expansion of a program to redistribute wealth and give it to them as a free handout doesn't mean that we don't care. If you actually look at some of the donation records, Republicans, elected officials, Republicans are more charitable to private donations and to charities than Democrats are. Why? Because they predominantly believe in the socialized redistribution and tearing apart from your wealth and forcing you to do that through government programs. And that's not efficient. And this is why we need to change that narrative. It is the Making America Great Again rally. And yes, it is going to be like a Make America Great Again rally, except for Donald Trump's not going to be there. That would be cool, but not going to happen. So it's the Making America Great Again rally right here in Wichita. It's going to happen this Saturday from yours truly here, and Kansas Rally is going to partner up with us on this one as well. Now, One Spark partnering up too. So a great list of great speakers. Hopefully more will be locking in here relatively soon. I want to see you out there. Show up just for an hour or two just to show your support. Bring your American flag, bring your signs, whatever you want to do. Let's get excited. I mean, you know me, if you've seen me MC any other rallies, we try and keep it exciting. We try and keep it fast-paced, and we're going to get you pumped up. It's going to be like a rock concert is really what we're going to be doing with all the great speakers. So come out, show your support. It's going to be a great time. 316-721-8255. Let's go to the phones. Your thoughts and calls. It's open lines to you for the last half hour of the program. Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hi, Andy. This is Helen.
Helen, how are you?
I'm doing just great. I think this is wonderful. Sounds very exciting.
I'm excited. I'm hoping we get a good turnout, and I know that we're going to have some protesters out there, but you know what? I don't care. We won't acknowledge them. It's about a positive message, and hopefully to see you out there.
And a good sign and a good motto would be, don't be an outlaw, follow the rule of law.
See, follow the rule of law right there. I love. See, you need to have a sign like that. Come out and be able to hold a big old sign, and we'll have some fun.
Well, and I was also calling about the nomination for Supreme Court.
Yes, can
judge.
you believe it? Brett Kavanaugh. Brett Kavanaugh is the name. Yep.
Well, I'm kind of concerned about him. I don't know his background. I don't really know. I'm suspicious because the Bushes support him, just like they supported Chief Justice Roberts.
Sure.
And look what turned out there.
Sure.
He turned out to be kind of basically stab us in the back.
It's kind of a moderate candidate. You're right. And I mean, that is something to be concerned about. That was a concern from what it sounded like for President Trump as well, not getting along necessarily with the Bush family and their support. Here's the thing. Now, I mean, when you're working up the political landscape and you're working up your career-wise, you kind of work with whoever you can. Ted Cruz did the same thing. I mean, Ted Cruz, to me, is one of the most conservative that we can have in the Senate, and I'm very, very proud to support him any way that we can.
Me too.
And Ted Cruz did the same thing. He worked up the George H.W. Bush administration. He was he was the Texas Attorney General under George Bush when he was governor of the state of Texas, and George H.W. Bush contributed to a Senate race in the state of Texas, and Karl Rove and George W. Bush did not like that and made him actually return that. So, but I don't hold that against Ted Cruz. So could that be a concern? Potentially. They say that because of the fact that he grew up and studied under some more moderate individuals like that. I mean, he was the apprentice under Kennedy, and a little more moderate candidate. At the same time, according to at least what we've seen for the day after the response and everybody thinking they know his entire history and his record, that they're saying that if he gets appointed, that he will be just behind a couple of the other ones. He would be the second most conservative Supreme Court justice that we have on the panel, and I think that could play in our favor very much so. The NRA's come out in mass support of him. Ted Cruz and Mike Lee have both come out in mass support of him and in support him. So hopefully that we would see a solidly conservative, originalist mindset when he gets on that Supreme Court.
Well, prayerfully, he will be a good one.
Let's hope so. And I mean, from what it sounds like, he would be and look, I mean, even if he doesn't help the whole overturning of Roe v. Wade sort of issue, which I know was the big issue that progressives brought up when they were concerned about the next nominee, if he's not able to do that, then at least he's another side on the conservatives for many other issues, and at least move towards that. If we can get one more, if Ginsburg is able to step down and we can get one more, then I think we're going to be in a really good shape to overturn a lot of good stuff.
What I've heard is that the Chief Justice Roberts is going to prevent any kind of overturn of Roe v. Wade.
Well, he can try, but that doesn't mean that if we don't have the numbers that we can't bring it up.
Well, but since he's Chief Justice, he can overturn, or he can prevent any kind of overturn of Roe v. Wade because he's the Chief Justice.
Sure. But I mean, at the same time, if there's a massive outcry where they have to address the issue, and we have enough individuals on the Supreme Court to be able to vote in that favor, I mean, he's going to look very foolish by turning it away just because he doesn't want to address it personally. So we continue to put the pressure on. We get this Kavanaugh on the panel. We get Ruth Bader Ginsburg off of there. We get another one that's close to Brett Kavanaugh and Clarence Thomas on the conservative originalist context for the Supreme Court, and they're going to have no choice but to start addressing some of these issues. But again, that's me being the eternal optimist.
Right. Well, and that's good. Oh, it's good to always be optimist.
Well, I mean, that's what we got to do. We got to be optimistic in every way we can. I appreciate it very much. Thanks for the call. I want to sneak in another one here. But you're right. I mean, is there concern for him being a little more moderate? Look, I mean, many of the conservatives, the anti-Trumpers on the conservative side, were very concerned about Neil Gorsuch as well. They were very concerned. Oh, he's coming from Colorado. He's coming from Evergreen, I believe it was. Kind of a more moderate individual in that sense. We don't know if he's going to be the most conservative. Donald Trump betrayed us by not getting a solid conservative. And look at what he's done. He's very conservative on there. Let's trust Trump's judgment on this when he knows what he can get through, and he knows what our agenda is to actually promote real originalist, traditionalist, conservative constitutional principles on the Supreme Court. And according to what we can see on the political spectrum, or at least on the judicial spectrum with ideological views, that he would be right up close to Clarence Thomas on a very conservative mindset. So if that's what it is, then all the power to him. Let's make it happen. Let's get her done, my friends, because that's what we're all about. Let's take another phone call here, shall we? Line at number 3. Good morning. What's your name?
Good morning. This is Deacon.
Deacon, what's happening, sir?
Man, it is a fantastic day out here, and it's a beautiful day to be alive.
Oh, it is. Living the dream every day.
Every day. I got to tell you that I'm happier than a twister in a trailer park.
Well, you know what? That's a good day to be, I guess, right there. I think that he's going to do some good. What do you think?
Absolutely. I'm looking forward to seeing what we can get done with, a good, decent conservative on the Supreme Court. And I'm telling everybody I know about this rally on Saturday. I know some guys with the local police department. I called the sheriff's department of Butler County this morning.
Good.
I'm trying to get. I want so many people to be there. We got to figure out a new location. There ain't enough room.
I love it. I appreciate that very much. Now, again, we've reached out to Sedgwick County Sheriff. We've reached out to the Wichita Police Department. But you're right. I mean, we need to reach out to the other counties and the other sheriff's departments in the area. Let's get as much law enforcement there as we can. I don't think that we would be in trouble to rally and have a massive number of people show up. And now, again, I was looking. I've been trying to figure out the details on this. I've never held a rally before. If I needed to get permits, if I needed to, let them know. I called the police department yesterday, let them know. They said that as long as we're not obstructing traffic, then we're fine, even with the speaker system. But if we get a massive number of law enforcement there, then just imagine the rally that we can have in support to say thank you for what they do on a daily basis.
Absolutely. And I've never been to a rally before. I'm looking forward to this.
Oh, brother, I tell you what, rallies are fun, and especially with me trying to keep it somewhat entertaining. Bring out your American flag, bring out a couple fun signs. I'm sure that word's gotten out on Facebook enough already that we're going to have some protesters there, and I want to outnumber them massively, and they can do whatever they want to, but let's have a little fun with this.
See, I invited 400 people on Facebook last night, so, hopefully we like I said, I'm just hoping it blows up, and, I'm gonna wear my American flag shirt, carrying my American flag, and America, brother, America.
That's what it's all about, my friend. I love it. We're looking forward to seeing you out there.
All right, look forward to seeing you. Have a great day.
Hey, very good, Deke. Appreciate it very much. Looking forward to that. Yeah, anybody that you blast it, please do on Facebook. Look, this is again a grassroots movement to where this is you and I on the radio saying, hey, maybe we should do something. Hey, maybe we should throw something together just as a response, as a positive effect. And I kind of was wavering on whether it would turn out successful, whether we would or not. And with the outcry from you, the listener, you, the constituent, you in the community saying this is what we need to do for a positive message, then let's make this happen. Let's make it happen. Blast it out everywhere on Facebook. I'll be sharing it about at least once a day on Facebook, on my page, on the Voice of Reason page. Kansas Rallies, they're partnering up with us to help organize and make this happen because I need a little guidance on this. And anybody that you know, let's blow this up. Let's make this rally happen in support of law enforcement, in support of ICE. Now, I did, by the way, reach out to ICE. I talked to their media relations individual for the region here, and I asked them if they could participate, and they're not able to. Just for the fact that their contracts, their terms with a government agency, they're not allowed to talk about what they do at the federal level like that. They're not able to attend political events or rallies. They said that they appreciate what we're doing in support of them, and I can read that part off to you, but they're not able to attend it in that sense. So it's our duty to show our support for ICE and for Border Patrol and for Homeland Security and all these organizations that are on the border doing that. I mean, just imagine the threats and the danger they have to go through on a daily basis just to keep you and I safe. As we talk about law enforcement on a regular basis having to wear the bulletproof vest, wanting to come home at the end of the day, wanting to go into situations that you and I wouldn't dream of wanting to walk into. These guys and gals do it on a daily basis on our borders and all around the world and all around the country, and we appreciate that, which is why we're doing this. So they're not able to attend physically, but they are there in spirit, and they appreciate what we're doing very much so, which makes it all the more important for us to have a great turnout in response to this. I'll be sending out a media statement to all the local media around here, and hopefully we can get some of them to cover this as well. More information to come on that a little bit later. Let's take another phone call here, shall we? Line number 1. Good morning. What's your name?
Hey, Andy. It's Dave.
What's going on, Dave? How are you, sir?
Oh, just great, man. I can't wait for your rally. I hope it's a big success. If it is, maybe it's just the first of many.
Hey, I like that idea. Maybe we can get something going here.
So the reason I called, I apologize if you've already covered this today, but anytime there's good news for conservatives or for the president, I like to watch MSNBC or CNN just to see their heads explode.
Oh, did you see the meltdowns that were happening yesterday?
Oh, it was hilarious. It was a great time. One thing that I noticed is just the most classic example of fake news that you could ask for. Have you covered the little protest that they had last night at the Supreme Court?
I saw that they had one. I didn't see what they were saying or what they were doing, but I knew that they had one.
Oh, it was great. So I've been to a lot of rallies and protests, and I have never seen such professional-looking signs and so well choreographed as that protest last night. They had a number of people with signs that were professionally printed that said "Stop Kavanaugh," and this was within 3 or 4 minutes of the announcement. So they must have had signs printed for every single nominee that was possible,
sure,
and they were ready to go at a moment's notice. And the fake news part about it, the great part about it was Rachel Madcow comes on and says, "Oh my goodness, look at this. There's already these spontaneous protests going on." And a number of other NBC hosts were saying the same thing, and completely ignoring the obvious fact that it had to have been choreographed from the beginning. It had to have been prepared no matter who the nominee was going to be, and they wanted to pretend like it was a direct response to Kavanaugh himself.
Sure. Yeah, it really makes you think what money is behind them. As you mentioned, having signs that are professionally printed and probably for all 4 of the potential candidates. Now, what would have been really funny is if Trump threw them off and actually picked some wild card that wasn't in the top 4, and then they wouldn't know what to do. They'd be kind of panicked. But the fact that they'd have to print all 4, have them ready, and then be ready to hold them. It's kind of like with the Super Bowl, to where they already had the T-shirts and the jerseys and the awards and everything all made up for both teams for whichever one wins, and doing the same thing for a justice nomination. That how much money had to go into that to prepare it to see which one it's going to be so they can grab it and go.
Yeah, I'd be real curious to know where the funding came from.
Yeah, it is kind of entertaining. I love that. I'm glad you brought that up, Dave. Appreciate that very much. Hopefully we'll see you out at the rally this weekend. That'll be a lot of fun. So you're right. I mean, where's the money coming from in the fact that these are sporadic protests? People are just so upset, and they just happened to turn out because they had nothing better to do on a Monday night, and they knew that was going to be bad, and they were just ready to go. It was just spontaneous. We don't know what happened here. Look at all the people that are actually upset, because we have better things to do with our lives, like work, which is why we're doing a rally on a Saturday and not in the middle of the week when, usually we're at work. 6 minutes at the top of the hour. We got to take a break, wrap up the show today. This is The Voice of Reason.
This is The Voice of Reason with Andy Hoosier.
Boy, the show goes by way too fast. We appreciate all the phone calls, all the comments, all the discussion. We'll have some more tomorrow. Didn't even get to a lot of what we wanted to do today, but we'll have a little fun again with it tomorrow. Plus, more information on the rally as we continue to get closer to it this Saturday. Let's make it happen. Let's turn out. Let's have a little fun and make our voice heard, because that's what it's all about. This is your show. This is your movement. This is your catalyst right here. It's time to speak up, speak out, speak loud, speak proud, speak the truth, and always speak some reason. This is The Voice of Reason. Everybody have a great Tuesday.